I'm seeing a lot of people talk about Claude 3.7 actually not being as good as the hype kind of makes it out to be. I put together some of the comments, and I actually just want to have a conversation about my feedback as well, because I don't think everything that's being said here is untrue. So let's first take this post. We have some initial results for full stack bench on Claude 3.7 versus our previous results on 3.5, and they're interesting. It still one shots the chat app on Convex, but it's 38% slower on harder tasks. We notice that it's better at making good looking UIs, but worse at React. That is interesting to me because React has been the thing that Claude, in my opinion, has just been freaking awesome at. My experience is I don't use React, so I can't judge that, but I will say it's better at Vue than 3.5. I've built some amazing looking UIs with Vue with Claude 3.7 Sonnet that I was not able to get from 3.5. 3.5 was still okay at it. I'm still good at it, actually. But I think 3.7 is actually better. So I thought it was interesting. This person saying that it's worse at React. I'd be curious what you guys see. Are you seeing something similar? This has got, not a lot of likes here, so I don't know how many people actually agree with this. Now this one actually has 2.8 thousand likes, 428,000 views. So this is a big one. Claude 3.7 Sonnet is worse than 3.5, and I'm happy to see it's not just me. It's overconfident, it ignores rules, it unnecessarily does more than it needs to, and therefore breaks the code. It drove me crazy these days, and I'm going back to 3.5. Yes. This sums it up incredibly well. Is it bad? No. Is it better sometimes? Yes. But does it go off the rails sometimes? 100%. I can't even really explain very well like how annoying it is to have it like doing well, doing well, doing well, and then boom, it does something that makes no sense at all. And then I try to redirect it and it'll go good for a little bit and then it just wants to go back and do that thing again. Now, I'm still using Claude 3.7 and I've built some really good stuff with it, but I found that I can't let my context run very long and I have to constantly restart the conversation, especially when it starts going off the rails. But I'm gonna be honest, I have switched back to 3.5 for certain things when I just couldn't get Claude 3.7 to listen. I do think Claude 3.7 is better starting off. I think if you put it in thinking mode, it does such a phenomenal job at like building out the plan that it wants to do and then execute on it. It's awesome. But if it tries to do something you don't want it to do, it's like talking to a toddler. It agrees with you and then immediately does it again. Like, stop doing that. Okay. And then it goes and does it again. Like, it's crazy to me how Claude 3.7 is just so stubborn at times. And again, this may not be the case for everyone. Everyone probably has different opinions because we use it differently. But it's interesting to see people kind of agreeing with stuff that I've been saying for a little bit now. All right, this is a post that I made actually in response to someone that said, I feel like I'm going crazy. Is Sonnet 3.7 actually worse than 3.5? I'd say my response to this is I want to say I've had the same feeling over the last 2 days after about 30 million tokens used. I think I figured it out. 3.5 is more directable when it starts to go off the rails. Like you can bring it back. 3.7 seems to be much harder to redirect back on track. I found just starting a new context works better for 3.7. 3.7 is better when it doesn't go off the rails, but once it does, you can't wrangle it back like you can 3.5. Hopefully that makes sense, but I feel like that sums up like what I'm dealing with very well. And if you want, you can come follow me on X and we can have some more conversations about this, whether you agree or disagree. I'd love to hear everyone's reaction to this because I think you're going to find people that love Claude 3.7 and you're going to have people that are kind of frustrated with it. So let's go on to the next one. So this one is by Naaman Manga. He says Claude 3.7 is just unusable, rate limited on both API key and cursor subscription. I don't think I agree with that. I have not had any issues with being throttled on cursor since day one. Like the last bit of time, I think it's been awesome. So this was posted yesterday in the morning. So maybe at that point it was worse than what it is now. So I'll give him benefit of the doubt. But overly verbose and making unnecessary changes, I actually don't mind the overly verbose part. And I haven't found that to be the case. It started to want to make like database migration scripts for my app that has its own ORM. So it doesn't need database migration scripts. It's all automated. And I kept telling it that, and it kept every time it would get to the next step, it'd make another database migration script. And like, come on, Claude, it's so annoying. So I just start letting it do it, and then I just delete that file. So it does do things that I don't quite understand. This person also moved back to Claude 3.5. Ryan Hanby says, I don't know what it is, but Claude 3.7 feels like a genuine step backwards in code quality over 3.5. I see a lot of people getting good results with vibe coding, but I'm seeing it become wildly confident at distinctively bad choices. That is very true. It is incredible at vibe coding. If you want to go like build a one-shot game, which a lot of people do, it's amazing at it. But if you're actually working in large code bases, which I am, it can be very frustrating. Like again, it's like talking to a toddler at times where it just won't listen. So I don't know. I agree with what he's saying here. I have not switched back to 3.5 yet. I still start with 3.7 because I do think it's better. It's better at view code. It's just a matter of like if it goes off the rails, start a new chat because you're done. Like Claude has already like went off the rails. You're not bringing it back. Anyone who's saying Claude 3.7 is worse than Claude 3.5 is straight up engagement baiting. After using both in Cursor, it's not even close, especially 3.7 thinking, getting insane results on the new model. Now, I do agree with this. Like, I think the thinking mode of Claude actually is amazing. And I disagree with this being engagement baiting completely because that is not at all what the goal of what I'm trying to do here is the goal that I have is to have a realistic view of AI. I do not want to be a hype person. I actually want to talk about how it is in real code bases. I'll do some one-shot prompting, but I also want to always talk about what it's like to actually code with on a day-to-day basis. So anytime I'm talking about a model, I use it for a very long time. And I have used Claude 3.7 a lot, and I have probably used Claude 3.5 more than most people on the planet. And I can tell you that there are times that Claude 3.5 is actually better than Claude 3.7. It is not a step change like a lot of people said. It is good. It is a nice iterative step up to a point. And then I think it's worse. So it's really interesting. And I hope it's something that they can fine tune Claude 3.7. Because I don't know if you guys have noticed, but Claude 3.5 has just gotten better. And there were times like months ago where I'd be like, man, Claude feels dumb today. So the way it is today is not how it's going to be a month from now. That's my personal opinion on it. My hope is that they make Claude 3.7 better. Leonid says, rolling back to Claude Sonnet 3.5, the new 3.7 is too unpredictable, constantly goes to loops in agentic mode, definitely better understanding code and knows Rust much better, but worse at following instructions in history conversation. I have not had that looping problem in agentic mode, and I've tried it in GitHub Copilot, and I've tried it in Root Code, and I've tried it in Cursor, and I've not had that looping problem. So I'd be curious if you guys are having that as well. But I will say it is worse at following instructions, in my personal opinion, once it goes off the rails. Once it stops, like, once it starts to want to do something that is not correct, it's hard to like redirect it. And this one still blows my mind. So like Claude 3.7 is actually terrible at React. The design decisions it makes are atrocious. That floors me actually because like Claude is just, in my opinion, like known for its React code, and it's honestly made me think about converting my entire app over to React to make it easier to use with Claude. But Claude 3.7 is significantly better with Vue. I can't even tell you how much better it is with Vue, and it has not once yet tried to force like a React implementation on me, which I really appreciate. Claude 3.5 would do that to me once in a while. So I can't comment on this personally because I don't use React. I'd be curious what everyone else thinks. So this one's interesting to me that this is the second person that said that. And we have Jonathan Moore, who posted that he's switching back to Claude 3.5 for coding because 3.7 seems noticeably worse and will argue when trying to correct it. I love that he gave an example because this is what it does to me. It'll be like, no, you're not right. And then it'll try to run. For example, I talked about my database migration script. I'll be like, I don't need that. No, you're wrong. You do need that. I'm like, no, I don't need that. Get rid of it. It's very interesting the way it kind of like wants to argue. I just want it to listen to me and not have to fight with it. Now, the big thing that I want to talk about is this post. So I'm going to zoom in here. And this one actually got an insane amount of upvotes. And this is on the Claude AI subreddit. And I'll link this one below in the description as well because this conversation is very fascinating to me because everyone uses AI very differently. We talk to it differently. And there's one piece in particular here that I thought was very interesting that I kind of want to start doing with AI that I'll call out when I go through this. So let's go ahead and read through this. I am a power coding user. I probably spend at least 25 hours a week with Claude. So now for me, I'm probably at like 40. No, I'm probably this week alone, I'm probably already over 50. Sometimes through Cursor, sometimes through Rookline, and since Monday, Claude Code. I gave up on Claude Code because it was just too expensive. I will go back to it at some point. In other words, I've become extremely familiar with Sonnet 3.5's news, quirks, strengths, and weaknesses, and I'm very comfortable steering it. I've used it to build multiple personal and business related projects that have worked very well. And I was exceedingly excited about getting a model update, like literally Googling Anthropic and then switching to the new tabs multiple times a day and getting multiple eye rolls from my 9-year-old daughter, AI again, question mark, despite knowing that I'll know the second it came out. Also, unlike many people in the sub, I am not upset at all by Anthropic's decision to safety and the time they take to really red team and prepare models for production. I don't mind waiting. I'd rather have something fully baked than janky and unusable. So please don't dismiss this with skill issue or anything like that. While I am not an elite programmer slash prompt engineer, I have spent an inordinate amount of time upskilling myself over the last 2 years and would have been more than happy with even a modest 7 to 10% increase in 3.7's ability versus 3.5's. 3.7 feels like a senior McKinsey consultant presenting model that mastered the art of lying to your face about how good they are and how capable they are at solving your problems. You don't know. McKinsey is like a big consulting firm. I have hired people from McKinsey. I have hired people from Deloitte. These people sometimes are very smart and very helpful, but you will sometimes get a consultant that just needs to prove their worth. So they always like tell you what you want to hear and they make it sound like super intelligent, super smart. So I assume he's talking about these consultants that you'll run into that just need to prove their worth. And they will tell you something that sounds smart and fancy, but it actually has no meat behind it. Granted, 3.5's new also had some of those tendencies, but I feel like it was a lot easier to get it to be humble and cognizant of its limitations. It wasn't as confident and it wasn't plagued by off putting hubris. So I plugged 3.7 right where I left off with 3.5 new, literally minutes after it was released on Monday on multiple projects. And it absolutely bombed, ignored instructions, introduced unnecessary complexity, and very quickly lost the thread. I kept telling myself in disbelief that surely is something I'm doing. I'd start new chats, switch solutions, Claude Code, Cursor, etc., but kept running into the same problems. My theory is that it's superior to 3.5 new in one-shotting tasks. That is 100% my theory as well. Hence the hype, because you're seeing a lot of people do these one-shot applications, and it's amazing at it, but degrades in performance as complexity increases fast. I simply don't have another explanation. This is my theory to a T. And I'm not saying it gets worthless. Like 3.7 is a phenomenal model, but it's just kind of frustrating to work with. This is the thing I didn't think about. I have never cared about the personality of my coding model. So I love this, and I love that he brought this up. The other thing I hate about it is when it's got no personality. With 3.5 new, I'd regularly crack jokes, we'd roast each other, engage in interesting philosophical conversations, etc., as a very pleasant reprieve from the high focus coding we were doing. It was like having a pair programmer who's also a great conversationalist, who's got some life, some spunk. 3.7 feels like it does not want to engage in anything other than work. It's like the new employee who retains a deadpan expression even as you try to build rapport and coax any degree of humanity from it. Today, I said enough is enough and went back to 3.5 new and made more progress in an hour than the last couple days, seriously. I am not an Anthropic fanboy. I bear no allegiance to any of these companies. I will stay with 3.5 new, but the second a better model comes out for coding, I will switch to it immediately. Okay, so we'll stop there. He just kind of apologizes for the rant at that point. And now back to my trusted friend and workhorse 3.5. So before I go into the comments to this, what blew me away on this is first off, the amount of engagement. This thing went kind of semi-viral on the Claude AI subreddit. 593 uplikes. I also upliked it because I think this is just a well-written post. It's well thought out, and I think it did a very good job kind of explaining, what he's thinking. I am by no means saying Claude 3.7 is bad, but I am also saying it is not as significant of an increase for my day-to-day coding as what I really thought it was going to be. And I think this person's seeing the same way. So this is the comment that actually got 87 upvotes. This is where I've been. I don't really care about the personality aspect, but it is interesting to me because I should try that. I'm just such a token-minded person. Like I don't want to waste prompts. Maybe I need to have a little bit more fun while coding. But based on how many other people are glazing 3.7, maybe it's a difference in the use case. Most of the people praising it seem to be I told Claude to write an entire Tetris clone and like the results. My own usage is a lot more surgical and micromanaged. I don't really trust an LLM to write good code without me constantly correcting it. Though Claude 3.5 had been and continues to be noticeably better than any other LLM I've tried, which is basically all of the name brand ones. I'm back on 3.5 and desperately hope they keep it around until they have another model that can actually perform in my real world usage better than 3.5. I ain't paying for 3.7. Sorry, it's not for me. It has not, for me, sure everyone's mileage may vary, and that's my point too. Everyone may have a different experience. Proved itself better than free alternatives, unlike 3.5, which has. This is the problem. I asked Claude to build an entire app and it did it in one shot. Testimonials are so far from a real world scenario. It's kind of frustrating. They're fun. I love doing them. I do them. I did a video with some, but I also put in some things that I was running into with Claude 3.7. And in even my first review of it, at the end, I talked about it going off the rails. So, I think both are important. What I think is more important is code that's actually going to be deployed and run in production because that is what pays the bills. For the stuff I'm working on, it's not even possible for Claude to get it right in one go. I want incremental development, and when Claude starts generating copious amounts of code, things go downhill fast. That is what the problem I'm having too. And it is so painful because it'll do so much, and you just didn't want all that to happen. This person actually wished people would be banned from posting the one-shot nonsense apps. I don't agree with that. I think they're fun. I think we should have fun with AI. We should see what we could do with one-shot apps because honestly, I just think it's a good time. We should compete with each other, use it for models, but that's not at the end of the day the most important thing. The most important thing is what we can do with our day-to-day job. And this person agrees with them. This person actually asked, does it have these problems outside of Cursor? I have used it in RuCode, GitHub Copilot, and I've used it in Cursor. Yes, it has the problem in all three of those places. It is the model. It is not any of those applications. Maybe there's ways to prompt around it to where you can add custom instructions that'll make it better, but 100% it happens in all the things that I've used it in. Actually, I've also used Claude Code, so it happens there too. And this person agrees. It's definitely the model. I have to constantly remind it to restrict its output to what I requested. Yes, 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 I do too. That's totally right. I have to constantly tell it to basically only give me exactly what I want so it doesn't give me thousands of lines of code. And I'm being exaggerating, and this person's exaggerating too. But it will go off the rails and just do stuff that you didn't ask for it to do. This person said something interesting. He says, interesting read. I may have noticed something similar. It turned a 400-line script that needed some minor tweaks into an 1,100-line script. I've not had it do that kind of crazy stuff. I've had it basically duplicate a bunch of stuff in my file before for no reason. And I've had it generate brand new files that I didn't need, but I've never had this happen. And this is probably true. It seems to have amplified the 3.5 tendency to over-design code. I think that's a good way to put it. I can agree with that as well. So I'd be curious what you guys all think about this. I'm feeling a little bit more justified in my thinking because I've been incredibly frustrated with 3.7 at times and then amazed at other times. There are times that I'll tell it to do something in my UI and it honestly shouldn't have done it because I didn't tell it to do it. And it built the most extraordinary thing ever. So I kind of like its overcomplication at times, but then sometimes it'll do things I absolutely do not want it to do. And it makes me really appreciate Claude 3.5. Again, I'm not switching from Claude 3.7 yet. I still think it's a fantastic model. I think I just have to do smaller subsections of code. But I will use Claude 3.5 at times when Claude 3.7 gets so off the rails and I'm in a context that I don't want to actually lose. I want it to be able to carry into Claude 3.5. I will do that. I know a lot of you are probably fans of Claude 3.7, and I think that's awesome. So don't shoot me for bringing this up because I still love the model. I'm a fan of what Claude 3.5 has done. It's something magic about it. I think Claude 3.7 is better at view. I think it absolutely is terrible at following directions. I think it's amazing at one-shotting code. I think it's significantly better at one-shotting code than almost everything other than maybe Grok 3 Think and then maybe O3 Mini High. I think those probably compare pretty well with it. It works so good in Cursor. It works so good in Rucline and in GitHub Copilot, but it can be incredibly frustrating. And I felt like as I started doing a little bit more research after I saw this post, the more I actually looked into it, the more people were actually having the same opinion that I have. And I think the problem is we've got so much hype around like these new models and all the people on X and on YouTube are all hyping up this model about being awesome because they're doing one-shot tests. They're not actually working in a production environment, like a production code base rather, that's got high complexity where you need to work across multiple files and do this very complex system. Even the ones that I think are like starting to get a little bit of that complexity where they're working on like their own projects, it doesn't compare to a project that's been developed for years and has thousands of files in it, very complex data model. It just doesn't. And I'm sure some of you are working on projects that are more complex than what I'm working on, and I imagine it's probably even worse. So anyway, I think I'm going to stop it there. I thought it was an interesting topic, and I'd love to kind of start a conversation there. And if you'd like to talk more about it, I'm going to drop a link to my Discord in the description below. I'm actually just getting it started. Please jump in. Let's chat about Claude 3.7. I'd love to know if it's actually not been bad for you and it's like your favorite model ever, like what you're using, like what language you're using, the type of code base you're using. I feel like the thing that has surprised me the most is the React comments. I've seen probably 5 or 6 people actually say React is actually worse than Claude 3.7, and that blows my mind, to be honest with you. Anyway, until next time, guys, peace out. Click on the Discord link below. I'd love to be able to carry this chat on outside of the video. Peace.